Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and we're doing a special Halloween bonus tutorial. Keenan, that was good.
Thank you.
So this is called Creepin' Black Cat, because it's peeking up, over, it's creeping.
Peekaboo.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're going to do this project in 6 steps. So our very first step, we're going to do, and this is all the, our very first step, we're going to do the first layer of the tail. Our second step, we're going to do the first layer of the hat. Our third step, we're going to do the first layer of the face. Our fourth step, we're going to go back into the hat and do the ears. Our fifth step, we are going to do fur textures on the tail and do the pupils here for the eyes. And then our very last step is just details, finishing off those details. We're using 2 paintbrushes, around 6 and around 2. These are our Let's Make Art Classic series. Princeton Heritage series will work great as well. Any rounds that you have, really any paintbrushes that you have would be just fine.
What would be the hardest paintbrush to use to paint this?
Just like a small, like probably a liner.
Something tiny.
If you only had a liner,
Yeah,
that would be really hard.
It'd take forever.
Yeah, but you would get some great fur textures at the very end.
Some sweet textures.
Okay, so the paint colors we're actually using Dr. P.H. Martin paint for this project. Our very first color is violet. Our second color is turquoise blue. Our third color is daffodil yellow. And our last color is black. Now for those of you that have the dandelion paint, you can use dandelion as well. Equivalents would be black, dandelion yellow, probably Tahoe blue or azure blue, and either amethyst or violet for the purple.
I'm so used to hearing dandelion yellow that when you said dandelion yellow, I was like, do you mean daffodil yellow? Because that's what we're using today. And I was like, oh wait, never mind.
Okay, we have an outline with this project, so I have it taped down to my paper. And then I'm going to take my graphite paper and do dark shiny side down. Remember, graphite paper gets better with age, so just keep using that same one that you get. I know that you get a new piece in every box and in every kit, but it's better if you just stick with one sheet. Okay, I'm going to use a gold pen to trace, and just whenever you make a mark, I like to pull it up and see how dark it is. Now this one I'm going to, when I do outlines personally at home, I try and make them as light as possible because watercolor is transparent. But when I'm filming, I try and make my outlines a little bit darker so you guys can better see what it is that I am doing.
The hat makes me think of Harry Potter.
Yeah, the sorting hat.
The sorting hat.
Keenan, have you taken the Harry Potter quiz of what house you would be in?
Yeah, I think I was like Gryffindor or Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I would guess Gryffindor first and then Hufflepuff.
Yeah. I wanted to be Slytherin because they're cool.
Michael Slytherin.
That makes sense.
I know. So great.
Dang it.
He's so cool.
He is so cool.
Okay.
He's such a bully.
He's so mean to me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Michael's the opposite of mean.
I know. That's why I kind of laughed when it got Slytherin, because I'm like...
That is super funny, actually.
What? Yeah. This dash here is kind of to remind you of a value change. You can put that in or you cannot put that in. Again, I'm trying to think of creative ways where I can show you that there are value changes within an object without having to do like a dark edge in there, because that could get you confused with the edge of a form or an object. I also decided to cut off this little kitty's face to make it look like it's peeking out more. But if you wanted to do like the nose and the whiskers, feel free to. You know what though? I have a hard time with painting cats.
You do?
I do. I can paint a dog like nobody's business. But I don't know, when it comes to cats, I feel like I haven't like perfected it as much. I struggle. I think I like think too hard about it and stress about it. I need to like approach it the way I approach clouds. You know what I mean? Like, ain't no thing.
I think it's the whiskers.
No.
Yeah.
No.
The whiskers are really hard.
I can do whiskers.
What?
Yeah.
Now I'm confused. I thought we were on the same page.
We're not.
Hmm.
No, I don't know what it is. I think it might be their short fur, but I can paint dogs with short. I can't figure it out.
Maybe it's the ears?
No.
It's the intimidation factor.
That's what it is.
They're terrifying.
I love cats.
Really?
I do. I love how much they like don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Love it.
I don't think they need a whole lot of maintenance either.
You know, honestly, I say I love cats, but I've never actually had a cat, like a real indoor cat.
Okay.
So I don't know what goes into taking care of them.
Gotcha.
A cat did adopt us on our little farm. It showed up was it last winter or the winter before in the freezing snow. So it's now our outside cat and we take care of it.
Which is very nice because they take care of the mice.
They do. She takes care of all the mice for us. She kills the mice and then leaves it on our porch for us as presents.
That's disgusting.
I'm not going to go into detail. If
Please
Michael
don't.
were here, he would go into detail.
I know.
But
He's the worst with it.
let's not do it. Okay. Okay, we got our outline. Now we're going to start with our tail. Now I just want to say that this is a black animal. Which can be confusing of how you paint a black animal because wouldn't everything be black? But even black objects or black animals, whatever, they have the rules of light and dark apply to them just as they would any other color, right? So there's going to be shadows and there's going to be highlights and there's going to be medium values. What I did in this painting is I actually used blue as the highlight for my cat.
Ooh, that's risky.
Do you see what I'm saying now?
Yes, I do now.
Did you notice it before?
No.
Okay.
How often do I notice colors before you tell me?
But this is kind of the cool thing about painting is like our brains look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's a cat, that's a black cat, and then like move on. But when you really look at it, you're like, oh, that's like blue.
That's blue.
That's straight blue. So that might be tricky for you guys starting this, but like I'm just pointing that out now. We're going to use a mixture of blue and black and that lighter value as the highlight instead of gray because I felt like it just added a color richness. You can do the same thing using gray instead of blue, but you know me, I just love color. So okay, can they see that reference photo?
They can see the cat's face.
Okay, maybe I'll do that. Is that better?
So it wasn't the top of the reference photo that was cut, it was the entire side. So it was just it was funny to watch because you just shifted it directly to the same spot. That's good. They see the left
They see the whole thing?
tip. No, they don't see the whole thing. You're going to have to shift pretty far to the right.
Okay, wait, what if I put it, is there room on top to put it? Like here?
Yes.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me put a pen underneath here so it can be.
That's it. That's nice.
And then now what about the palette?
Palette looks great.
Yeah, they can see the whole thing?
They can see the whole thing.
Wonderful. Look at us being professional.
I wonder, maybe next time you have to adjust something, I'm just not going to tell you and be like, I don't know. You tell me.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Me?
I just.
That's so mean.
Sorry.
That's like if I started a tutorial, they're like, Sarah, how do I paint this? And I'd be like, I don't know.
You tell me.
You tell me. And then I just sit here staring at the camera for an hour.
Which could be fun.
Okay. I'm going to grab a little bit of black, swooping it to the center. Also, my palette is crazy like this because my palette was wet. It had water on it, and then I dropped in the color, and it made the color just move, which is kind of cool, but makes my palette look way crazier than it needs to look. But I don't want to waste this paint, so I'm just going to go for it.
I will tell you what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a technique in woodworking where they put two electrical probes on opposite ends of the piece of wood they're working with, pour water on it, and then they put electrical current through those probes, and it creates looks like that.
That's cool.
In the wood. It looks like lightning.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I don't remember the technique. It's dangerous.
It is
I say
water current lightning.
Yeah.
That's the technical term.
Okay. I'm not even going to Google it because that sounds right.
You don't need to.
I don't need to.
I'm here.
Wow.
Okay. So I mixed a little bit of my blue with my black, and I kind of have this navy color a little bit. And then I brought in a little bit of water to the party because I want it to be a lighter value. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my round 6, I'm going to pick up this lighter value of this navy and just start filling in my cattail. I'm going to work fairly quickly. And remember, cattails have hair on them, so they're not perfectly smooth in all of the areas. The fur chunks tend to poke out more wherever there's a bend. And then what I'm going to do is, when this is nice and wet, I'm going to grab some black and mix. I'm just going to mix a little bit of blue into it, just because I don't want the black to feel flat against that navy. And then I'm going to introduce this darker value into the tail. So I'm going to do it, and there's some, you can kind of see some outlines here on my outline of where those shadows are. So there's some kind of near the top on this curve. And it's going to kind of like blend and move around a little bit because the color is, the first layer is wet. That's okay. So I'm just kind of like moving this color throughout.
It's very wispy.
Yeah, it's like whoosh, moving. And then what I'm going to do is kind of just like on this area where the where it kind of like comes out, the fur kind of comes out. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow in there too, so some of this dark value. We'll go back in when it's dry and put in like the detail fur, but we're just doing hints of it right now, so it's supposed to blend out. It's not supposed to be sharp. That's okay. We're just doing our first layer. Okay?
Okay.
And then I'm going to mix a little bit more blue into my black here and kind of go in between, like see where it's like a really light blue and then this like dark black almost? I'm going to introduce more of this like true blue into there. There we go. And now that's starting to feel like it has a bit more form now. Again, you'll notice that I'm not covering up all of it. I'm leaving some light blue areas because I want it to feel like more highlights, you know? So that's why I like to do like just strokes of like, here's an area, here's an area, here's an area. Because one, you can always add more. I don't have a 2, so I don't know why I said 1. You can always add more. 1 and only, you can always add more. Maybe just right here a little bit more, give that nice blue. Okay, we're gonna leave that alone and move on to our first layer of our hat. So I'm going to grab this violet and I'm going to add some water to it. And I'm just going to start painting my hat with this, a light wash of violet.
I like violet.
Me too. It's such a beautiful color. Now, on the left-hand side of this hat, there's going to be a darker value, a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to grab a little bit more purple or violet and kind of go along this edge here. And then kind of blend that out. Now on the right hand side, there's also a little bit of a shadow, not as much as on the left hand side, but still a little bit because we want to show our viewer that it's turning away. Okay, so I'm just going to do one more layer. And remember, this is our first layer, so when we're done with this part, it's not like the fully fleshed out thing. This is just our first painting layer. Okay, and then we have the brim. And you can see on the left-hand side here that we see the under part of the brim, the underneath part of the hat. You just want to make sure that that's a darker value. So I'm going to put in this lighter violet first. I'm going to work around this kind of clip or ring. Somebody painted this project already and they did something really cool on this clip. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, I wish I could remember. But I was like, oh, that's such a great idea.
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
Then you can describe it.
I think you can look up project names in the group, but I don't know if the black cat would be a tagged project name yet within the group because it hasn't been released yet. Okay, so I have the brim, and then this little corner here, I'm going to grab just pure, like more violet, so it's a darker value. There we go. Okay. We're going to leave that for now, and we are going to move into the face. So, and we'll be playing off of the same colors for our cat. So I'm going to use this light blue. And we're on step 3, you guys. We're on step 3. And I'm going to start by putting in the light values first. So I'm doing my light blue. And if you want to go over the entire cat and not just do like the highlighted sections, that might be easiest. Just make sure you're doing it light enough that you can still see the outline underneath, so you know when there is where you need to put in a shadow.
I cannot find it.
That's okay.
Excuse me.
If you had a guess, Keenan, what was there? What was your guess?
I didn't even see it.
No, I know. You have to guess.
Okay.
What do you think it was?
Wait, did she change the buckle or did she paint the buckle?
She changed the buckle into something else.
A pumpkin.
That's what it was. Oh my gosh.
Nailed it.
That's what I should have done. Should have been a cute little pumpkin right there. Wow. You totally guessed that right.
Nice. I mean, it's the only other Halloween subject circle that I could think of.
Okay. So, we have our first layer down on the face. Okay? I'm not going to put the black in yet. I'm going to we're going to move to another area before we go back there because we want it to dry. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do the ears. And then we'll do the hat, and then we'll go back into the face. Okay, so for the ears, if you mix this violet with a little bit of yellow, it will have a pinky feel to it, which reminds me of like the color that you see on like dogs and cats in their ears when it's just the skin without fur. Okay, so I made this pinky color. And what I'm going to do is on the left-hand side, I'm going to put it in. Okay. Then I'm going to use water all the way around. I'm going to leave this right-hand side unpainted for now. And then I'm going to take black. And while it's still wet, I'm going to go along the edge.
Stop it.
And it's going to bleed just a little bit. It might bleed a lot, but if that happens, I'm okay with it because people can usually tell what ears are, and so they don't like get caught up on them too much. And then when it's still kind of damp like this, I'm just going to just a little bit blend out like so. Okay.
That looks awesome.
And then I'm going to take this blue that I made and go along the very edge too, because even the little fur on the ears would be highlighted, and I want to make sure that these ears feel like they belong to the same body, right? So I got to introduce blue but back in here so it doesn't feel super separated. Okay, I'm going to leave that for a second, and then I'm going to do the other one. So I have this like pinky color. You guys can decide how pinky you want it to be. And I'm going to take black, do the same thing, go along the edge. This one's blending more. Ooh, that's cool.
You know one thing I appreciate about cats?
What?
Their posture and how they stand up or sit up straight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is good.
And if you need to use your round 2 to do these blue tips a little bit, if that's easier for you, there's nothing wrong with that. This I'm just going to blend out just a little. And then when I blend it out, I sometimes just do these like thinner strokes, because like sometimes you can see the individual hairs in those areas because it's transitioning to no hairs. So then it's like little hints. Okay. Okay. And if you need to go back into your right ear, and if you got to do this when it is dry, that's fine too. But sometimes even after I paint the ears and maybe even the face after we go in and do some shadows, I might have to go back in there and re-darken some of the areas. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, let's go into the cat face here. Now, you can follow the outline, you can look at the reference photos, but you'll see that there are some areas that are going to be left this kind of bluish color and then some that are pure black. So I'm going to grab my black and I'm just going to follow my outline. So right underneath the hat, it's black, and then it kind of, and you'll see that I'm doing strokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to, this left-hand side is going to connect to the eye.
I feel like I should say what I noticed.
What?
I noticed how, because looking at the reference photo and looking at what you're doing right now and how it's unfinished, I noticed when you said strokes that you're kind of doing the shape of the face of the cat.
Yeah. So when you put in brush strokes, sometimes the directions of your brush stroke really matter. And so that's why when I'm going in here, I'm not just like coloring it in. I'm really thinking about if I were to like touch this cat, how would my hand move? When you pet a cat, do you go to its side and then do up and down? No, because that's not the way their fur is. That's not the direction their fur is going. So you try and pay attention to what direction is this form already going, and that's the direction you want to paint. So like around the eye, when I get to this part, I'm going to go upwards because if you look at the hair and the direction it goes on a cat around its eye, it follows the form of the eyeball or the eye socket. So good call out, Keenan. So you want to make sure that when you're adding, like painting anything, especially if it's an animal, what direction is the form already going, and do your brush strokes that same way, because that will inform the viewer too of the form. And then it's kind of shadowed underneath. You can see I changed my brush strokes. And this left hand side is just black. Okay. And this is going to be one of those things that as you're painting it, you're like, this doesn't look like a cat's face. And I get that, okay? I get that, but let's just keep going. Don't give up on it yet, okay? So on here, the right-hand side of this nose is shadowed. The eye socket actually is the part that's highlighted on both. And the right-hand side on this. This is shadow. Again, this is, all of these lines are on your outline. You just kind of have to keep track of which part is the highlight and which part is the shadow. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. Right? And at this point, you're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Keenan, I can feel your stress.
Yes.
But it's going to be okay. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is we have our highlights and we have our darks. Now we got to kind of blend them out a little bit, the in-between. So using just a damp brush, I'm going to start blending out the edge of this black to the blue. And if you want to do a little blue, kind of like that blue that we put in as a third step, if you want to do that in this part too, you can. So I have some of that blue on my brush, and I'm kind of blending between these black shadowed areas and the highlights. So already I feel like my left-hand side is starting to feel a little bit more cohesive than my, you know what I mean? Like this feels way more natural, like fur and texture, than this side. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's okay.
It'll all come together.
It will come together. And quite frankly, cats are one of those things where you see this tail, you see the black color, and people are gonna be like,
cat. Challenge accepted, Sarah.
So again, just kind of blending out along these edges where these places meet. And then sometimes what I like to do is as I'm blending out, like I'll leave an area without touching it, like this triangle part of the nose. Just to give myself the option of like, do I want that to be a highlighted part? Or do I need to blend that out? And sometimes you won't know that answer until you finish like blending stuff out. And then you're like, oh no, that like is sticking out kind of like a pumpkin nose. So maybe I should blend that. But it's nice just to like give yourself options of like, do I need to, do I not? And then when I blend it out here, I'm gonna also lift color up from the top a little bit. There we go, like that. Okay. We're gonna let that dry for a second before we go back in and do anything else to the face. We're gonna go into the hat. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of violet and I'm gonna grab a little bit of of blue and make like a really pretty purpley violet. And I'm gonna start doing a little bit darker shadow on the left-hand side of my hat. And you'll see that this hat isn't totally smooth, right? It has like a wrinkly, old, agey feel to it. So don't feel like your hat has to be like straight. I wanted it to feel kind of leathery and aged, like in the Sorting Hat in Harry Potter. And you'll also notice that my brush strokes, I'm kind of like going out. They're like angled, trying to follow the form of the hat. So the angle of your brush strokes I do even on objects, right? It's not just on animals. And then that right hand side, we're gonna do another little shadow. It won't go out as far, but we wanna show this is a three-dimensional thing. It's turning away from the light. Well, that was strong blue. Okay, when that happens, don't stress. Immediately just grab a damp paper towel and lift. Now it's not a thing.
Voila!
Voila! I'm just kind of blending out the middle part here, making these lines a little bit softer and smoother. And that's just with a damp brush.
I made them very soft.
Yeah, just doing a little. So whenever you notice like hard lines within your painting and it's driving you nuts, sometimes just taking a damp, clean brush and working your way across those areas can just soften them or blend them out. I'm going to go across again on the shadow. Now I'm going to introduce a little bit of black into this, a little bit of black, blue, dark purple. But if you just want to do straight blue, you can. Kind of just following the shape of these wrinkles and blending it out. And this is where kind of like the texture of watercolor lends itself. Doing these layers, you're going to get different drying times, right? You're going to get, you can see softly kind of like the different layers in between. I feel like that adds to the look of like a weathered object.
Agreed.
So don't fight it when that's happening. You know what I mean? This is kind of to your benefit. And you'll see that this area right here, I'm still mostly leaving alone because I want that to be the lightest part on that hat. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone for a second, and I'm going to go into the
brim.
Brim. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now on the back part, kind of where the belt is of the hat, there would be a little bit of a darker value. So I'm going to lay that in there too, and then blend forward, or blend down, I guess. And then same thing on this left-hand side, where that brim is meeting that. And that's also how we're communicating distance, right? Is by introducing a darker value to it. And then kind of like in this very corner, on the underneath side of the brim, I'm going to switch to my two. I want that to be really dark. So on this side here, on the right hand side, on the underneath of the brim, we're just going to put in a little bit of a shadow. And it's just going to give us that extra depth. We need to push it far away to show that that keeps going behind the cat. Do you see that now?
Yes.
Okay.
Where are his ears coming from?
There are slots in the hat.
Okay.
Obviously, Keenan.
Perfect.
Come on.
I was checking.
Keep up, okay?
So sorry.
Just kidding. Okay. Now I'm going to go back into the left-hand side, and I'm going to be utilizing my round 2 this time. And I'm just going to kind of like in between these, you can see I have like ridges or wrinkles here. I'm going to kind of introduce that in a couple other areas too. So just like really making this, really exaggerating the texture of this old hat.
Have you ever painted tried to actually paint the
sorting hat?
Dang it, yeah, the sorting hat.
No, but I should. That would be cool.
That would be fun.
My hat is just getting a little bit wider and wider, which of course, we're the artists, right? So like, that's fine. Don't get frustrated with that. Okay, same thing on the right-hand side, using my 2. Gosh, I love how that blue is peeking out underneath on this hat.
I know, it looks good.
It's really pretty. Okay. And then if you like, of course you guys can see your painting, right? I can't see it. So if you need to do an extra layer anywhere, or maybe I keep on doing layers and you're like, no, mine's good, you have every right to follow what your painting is telling you to do. Okay, now for the band on this hat, I'm going to mix a dark purple with the violet and a little bit of black. I'm going to do a dark edge. And then to make it feel like it has a little bit of sheen to it, like velvet or something, I'm going to leave a chunk white.
No wash?
I'll blend it out.
Ah.
So I'm going to start by just leaving it white. Like that. Keep the band going. Also, it is so hard to do like an even circle. You can see that even on the outline here, this like belt, this gold part is not a perfect circle. But I feel like that just adds to the age of the hat, you know? Maybe it was hand.
Well, and we don't know what angle, you know, the cat's at, really.
That's true. That's
true. It could be
true.
moving. This could be an in-motion shot. We don't know.
We don't know this cat's life.
We don't know how long it dedicates its days to good posture. We don't know what it likes to snack on.
Maybe that's why that person decided to turn it into a pumpkin too, because they're like, listen, this gold ring is like kind of wonky. Let's do a pumpkin.
Ooh, that's true.
Okay, and then this side, same thing, I'm going to leave a couple white chunks, okay, like that. And then what I'm going to do is just with the damp brush, I'm just going to swoop and blend in these areas. But I'm not going to work it back and forth too much, because if I do, I'm going to lose my highlight. All that color is going to evenly disperse. So you just kind of want to like touch it. Just do a quick swoop across. Like that. And now there's different values in there. It's making it feel like like there is some shine to that ribbon. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of extra black, because around this ring, the ring would be leaving a shadow a little bit on this ribbon. So I'm going to kind of add in a darker value where those are meeting. Makes that pop out more. Okay, we're gonna leave that. We're gonna go back into the tail and the face. So, you guys are doing great, okay? Now I'm gonna grab my 6 and using black, because I did put black in my shadows, but that was when it was really wet, so it bled out a lot, which is really cool because we have some great textures. But I want to go back in there and really darken up my darks. So I'm just going to do a black wash on top. And again, really embrace the brush strokes. Do thin ones. Do kind of little chunks of fur like this. And then this one would be a big shadow. So if you get lost a little bit, you can, another trick is sometimes I'll look at my outline as well while I'm painting and be like, oh yeah, there were these little chunks here, that kind of thing. So you can always use your outline as a reminder of maybe where some areas were. And remember, outlines, you don't have to follow them exactly. This is your painting, so if you want to go off of that, you can, but you don't have to do it exactly. And then, of course, you guys know me, I like to blend it out, get a little messy.
I like that tail.
Yeah, that's looking good. And then what I do with my round 2, final little touches on this tail, is I'll do some thinner brush strokes on some of these edges. Now again, I don't want to do it on all of them. If you do a black outline across this entire tail, we lose all the form that we built. It's just little hints here and there, just to like show the texture. If you want to use maybe a blue for this part instead of the black, you can. Don't be afraid to just add a little bit of fur coming out. And you can do it within the tail as well. But remember, if you're doing it in a wet area, it's going to blend out. It's not going to keep that those thin lines. Oh yeah, look at that tail. Okay, cool. Now we're going to go back into the face. I'm going to use my round 2 for this. And I'm just going to re-darken those areas because we blended out the areas where it was the shadows were meeting the highlights. Now we need to go back in and re-darken some of those shadows. So I know that on the right-hand side of this eye, it's going to be dark. Right underneath the eye. And kind of where that nose is hitting the eye. And then this might be a good time to kind of shape your eyes a little bit. So I'm going to outline it. Now if you're like me and a little bit of black got into your eyes when you were blending out, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. See, doesn't this side already look a little bit more
finished?
Finished.
Yes.
Putting those shadows back in.
Less stressful? Yes.
Now one thing I noticed is I did a thick outline on my eye, but I'm gonna lighten up right in the middle here. And you can do that just taking a damp brush. You can like put color and you can either like lift up the color or use your, in tiny areas like this, I would rather lift the color up with my brush instead of just use a paper towel, because the paper towel is pretty wide and I could end up smearing. And the reason why I'm doing this is my shape of my eye, it seemed to be flat when I did that thick line at the bottom. It kind of like flattened my eye and I want it to feel round. So I just lifted up color in that middle there. To kind of round it out a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on the right hand side. And right underneath the brim of this hat, it's going to be pretty dark too. So if you want to just go across. And then on the right hand side, and if you're a little bit lost, please remember that like the reason for this reference photo in here is like just so you guys can like have something to look at closely if you can't see closely what I'm doing. So utilize that. It's super helpful because sometimes you do get, well, me and Keenan like to say, lost in the sauce.
Yes.
And so like when that happens and you'd be like, okay, I'm not entirely sure what area I'm painting. Let me look at the reference photo here. Okay, I see a black shadow on the right hand side. It's also one coming up. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of like being able to make art is honestly just being able to see what's in front of you, instead of trying to have your brain figure out what's going on. If you can just replicate what's in front of you and what you're actually seeing instead of what your brain is telling you you see, then you can paint and draw anything. But it's so hard to do that, and it takes years and years in practice. So like, if you're struggling, I love to challenge people, you know, if this is something that they really want to get better at and really want to create their own works and like how they can improve in that, spend a lot of time just looking at things and then notice what it is that you're seeing instead of what your brain is telling you see. Okay, my cat is feeling a little bit better. A little bit more finished. And again, cats, any animals look really weird until you put in the eyes, okay? This is no different. Okay, so for the eyes, I did green, yellow, green. You guys can do whatever color you want, but I thought it just worked really well with the purple and the black, and it reminds me of Halloween. So I'm going to take my yellow and my blue and mix a green. And then I'm going to mix a really light yellow green. And can they see that?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm going to mix a dark green. Maybe introduce a little bit of black in there. So I have 3 greens to choose from, okay? Now, for the bottom part of the eye, it's going to be this really light yellowy green. So I'm doing a light wash, this yellow green. And if you want to drop a little bit of extra yellow in there, I'm not going to stop you. Okay, and then kind of near the pupils, I have actual green here. And I'm just going to continue this green all the way up. And then I'm going to take this really dark green, almost black green, And that's gonna be the very top of my eye. So if you look at my outline here, you see how I have like it halfway, there's like a line across. That's because the top part of that eye is shadowed.
Watch your head.
And that's me, oh thank you. And that's me reminding you, put in that shadow. And that is what is gonna make these eyes feel round and depth and all of that stuff. Also, this hat is casting a shadow too, so that's why we got some heavy shadows on the top of our eyes here. Okay, now before I put in the pupils, I want this area to dry because I don't want that black paint just like going in all of this like really pretty green that I just put down. Sorry, I just decided right now to do one more layer of dark. Your painting might not need this.
Nice.
Now, while I'm waiting for that to dry, I can do the yellow gold thing on my hat. So you can use straight yellow. I mixed a little bit of purple in mine to kind of give it a metal feel instead of like this bright yellow. And if you can, I know the outline is not a perfect circle, but if you can kind of like even out that circle, go for it.
I would end up making just a gigantic circle.
Listen, we're okay with that here. And this is so small that if you wanted to do a flat wash, you can. I like to leave little highlights like edges that aren't painted like this and then just kind of use water to blend out some of the areas just so there's slight differences. And that's what gives you kind of that sheen or shiny look. Okay.
Yeah, it looks good. It's a nice circle.
Thank you. And now I'm going to go in with my cat, and using my round 2, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the tail. I'm going to do it in my cat. So I'm going to do it on the ears. Just doing little fur wisps. If you have bleed-proof white, you could do this with white because cats' ears tend to have white hairs coming in there as well. That. And then I'm going to kind of like paint the eyelids a little bit on the very inside of these green areas if it's dry. We gotta kind of paint where they meet up, but still leaving kind of a white edge for the highlight of the eyelid itself. But you do not want this little edge, this eyelid edge, to one, be so thick that it looks like the whites of the eyes. That's not what we want. If it's looking like that, you need to thin it out. And then another thing that I do to help with that is I'll just do a little swoop across it so it's not white paper. So it's still a highlight, but it's not like the whitest thing that's poking out. Because if it's the whitest thing that people are seeing and it's distracting and it's starting to adjust like the shape of the eye to where they look like human eyes instead of cat eyes, you need to make that smaller, and you need to tone down the whiteness of it. Okay. Now I think my green is dry enough that I can put in the black. Now on each cat eye there are there's going to be 4 parts. There's the super black part, there's 2 glare dots, and then in the middle of the black part, there's like a longer glare, and it's on the outline if you need to look at that. And that's just a lighter value. So the glare spots I leave white. And then the longer glare that's kind of down here, I'm going to leave that white first, and then I'll swoop it over with the paintbrush in just a second.
Watch your head.
Oh, thank you.
Posture is key.
The last 3 times you've made posture jokes, I just have not been able to pick it up. So I'm glad that you're telling me just to move my head. Because whenever you're like, that posture is really interesting, I'm like, yeah, it is. And then I just like, don't move. Sorry about that.
Like when I talked about the cat's postures.
Oh my gosh, was that you trying to do that? Keenan!
That was so funny.
I am not picking it up. I wonder if people watching are like, Sarah, he's trying to tell you nicely to move.
Maybe.
That is so funny. I'm usually able to like really get what you're saying, but not this time, I guess.
It might be my new favorite game though. Because I've been able to sneak posture in several times.
Okay, now, my black is mostly dry at this point, even though I just put that in. If yours is not, don't do this yet. But I'm just going to take a little damp brush and work across this bottom glare. So it's still a highlight, but it's not as white as the other little dots that are there. Yeah, look at that cat. Look at that cat picking up.
Nice.
Now, at this point, since the dark part is in, if you need to do another layer on the top of the eye for the dark green, you can. Maybe yours is dark enough it doesn't need it. It's up to you. I'm actually going to bring it down, blend it down just a little bit. I gotta hold it up and look. Okay. It's looking good. And there is a little bit of a shadow on this one, right underneath. Just doing those last finishing details. We're on the last step here. If you want to do a couple fur textures like on the edge of the cat using your round 2, you can. If you want to do little hints of a whisker, so it's like, so if this is the nose and the whisker is coming out, then you can kind of be like, okay, you would see a hint here, maybe here.
Oh, nice.
Same thing, maybe over here. Kind of like that. But don't be afraid to make any adjustments to your painting as you see fit. Even now I'm like, this needs to be a darker shadow on the top of the nose. There we go. And up here. I always keep on thinking like, I'm done, and then I'm like, no, just one more thing. Needed to darken the top of those eyes a little bit more. And of course, these eye colors are up to you. Ooh, orange eyes would be so cool.
Oh, and orange and purple look so good together.
Yeah. There we go. Yes, it's like glowing. I want those eyes to feel like they're glowing, but then the hat is shadow. Okay, okay. You guys, we did it. We painted a black animal utilizing blues for our highlights and our lighter values. I hope you had fun with this project. It is a little bit difficult, so if you just are frustrated and you take a step back from it, put it down, walk away for a minute, come back to it with a clean slate, because sometimes our brain gets so worked up that we can't actually see what it is that we're doing. So if you painted this, I can't wait to see it. You can if you painted this, I can't wait to see it. So share it with us. On Instagram, you can tag us at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. If you're on Facebook, we have a watercolor group called Let's Make Art Watercolor. Feel free to share your work there. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. And please feel free to make this painting your own. You can add adjustments. You can change the color. You can do a full face cat maybe if you want. Totally up to you.
Pumpkin buckle.
Pumpkin buckle. Pumpkin hat.
Candy corn buckle.
Candy corn buckle.
Candy corn hat.
Yes. Look at all these ideas. So I hope you had fun with this. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with, and I'll catch you later. Bye.